So as a registered dietitian there, she teaches nutrition, also some training. We have some folks here, Christine is not here, Brian is, who are already clients of Jillian's. Actually, we didn't know that when we first met, I didn't. And so they can speak to you about their awesome results as well. Jillian's approach is a little bit different. She prefers a psychological approach to why the heck you're doing what you're doing and why you're doing it. Today she's going to talk to us a little bit about research and a little bit about that. We hope to have future sessions. Because we have a sign-in sheet, we want everyone to sign in. Jillian's agreed to follow up with you so we can see what your needs are. This isn't a sales thing, it's to find out if anyone wants one-on-one counseling, that's fine, but how we can serve you in the future with some additional sessions. Obviously, you don't cover everything in one lunch and learn. So please welcome Jillian Foley.
Hi guys. So like she said, I work at a gym. I've been working there for 5 years as a dietitian. So the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian is that anyone can basically call themselves a nutritionist. In order to be a registered dietitian, you have to get your bachelor's. I think very soon you have to get your master's, so thank God I made that. But you have to get your bachelor's, and then you have to complete 1,200 hours of an internship, and then you have to get your license to do it. So in this, I'm going to actually talk about, I like to pay attention to, I know she said research, and I don't want you to think I'm going to start shooting numbers at you. The reason I like to give a background of nutrition before I start going into like the details of the macronutrients and all that is because I don't believe in someone just telling you what to do. The example that I give is when I used to go to tell me if anyone else does it. So you go to the dentist, and that morning you floss your teeth, and you think that they don't know that you don't floss your teeth normally, right? So, and then they're like, well, you should floss your teeth. I'm like, I do, because I did that morning. So this one time I go to the dentist, and the lady says to me, I want you, the next day, I want you to brush your teeth, and then I want you to floss your teeth. And sure enough, I brushed my teeth, I think I did a good job, and then I flossed my teeth. And it's gross, it comes out like I didn't brush my teeth. And to me, that is my approach. I do not believe in telling people, well, these are your macros, this is what you need to do. Because it might work for 2 weeks, and then real life kicks in, and then it's not working. So my approach is, I like to teach people what to do, and then I help guide you along. So I'm not the kind of person that's like, no pizza. I'm like, you can have pizza, but just know what you're eating. So we're gonna talk about the nutrition history. We're going to talk about what your calorie needs are and how they're really only a baseline. We're going to talk about your macronutrients and why they're important. I don't like to talk macros because it just seems so cliche and trendy, but I know that they're brought up a lot, so we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what food groups they're in. So like we could even sit here and discuss this food that was brought in, and so we could take a look at it and make sure that we're getting what we should. And then we're going to talk about how this applies to like weight loss or strength training. And then we're even going to kind of fit in how you do this in your busy schedule. Because I know it's like, you hear a lot of things. You're like, oh, well, we need 6 mini meals a day. Well, I know a lot of you guys are on the road. A lot of you are busy. So it doesn't make sense that you feel like you need to have a lunch and then you don't have a microwave. And then you feel like there's no options for, like, how do you eat healthy? So we'll talk about stuff like that too. So I wanted to talk about research first and why it's constantly changing. And the example that I give is food is a really hard thing to control, and people tend to lie about their food, and not on purpose. You know, we eat while we're standing, while we're cooking our food, and we don't even acknowledge that. So when someone comes into me and tells me what they're eating, they don't tell me that they had 200 calories of the meat sauce that they were cooking the night before. So the example I give is, when they're researching medication, let's say you have Group A has a headache and Group B has a headache. And you give Group A Tylenol and you give Group B a placebo. Well, if you do your research and you follow them and you find out, that one group is going to say that they saw less headaches. Let's say you have Group A and you have Group B and they both have high cholesterol, and you tell one group that they can't have eggs and the other group they can, but are you controlling their breakfast meat? Are you telling them they can't have chicken wings when they go out to the bar? Are you controlling their alcohol? Are you telling them? So there's so many different things that exist in research, and that's why the example I give is cholesterol. About 20 years ago, we were told that we shouldn't have eggs, that they lead to high cholesterol, and then they do more research and they find that that's not the case. The dietary cholesterol is not going to take up your cholesterol levels. It's actually going to be saturated fat. And it's funny because I had a guy send me a research study 2 days ago, and he was like, see, I told you, new research shows that eggs do raise your cholesterol levels. Well, they were allowing this group to have 3 to 4 eggs a day, but each egg has 2 grams of saturated fat. So is it the cholesterol in the egg? Is it the saturated fat in the egg? So there's so much that has to go into it, and you have to make sure that they're not biased. You have to make sure that they're not looking at one age group, that they're not looking at one, group that has certain genetics. So there's just a lot that goes into it. And then the education to the public. So now they use the My Plate, but you'll see they used to do the My Pyramid. Do you remember that? It was like on the back of the bread. It's not even practical. So thank God they took that away, because we don't talk about pyramids. Like, would you say you didn't know nutrition and you didn't have an understanding of what you're supposed to eat? Would you look at that on the back of your bread and be like, oh, now it all makes sense? So at least this makes sense. And then normally my approach when I work with people is then we dissect it and we break it down. So even though I'm like, okay, you've got your protein and your grains and your vegetables and your fruits, they all make sense for whether we're talking about breakfast, whether we're talking about snacking, whether we're talking about smoothies, stuff like that. It always comes down to food groups and portions. And the other reason that nutrition is often confusing is because of social media and because of the news. And let's face it, the news wants ratings. So just as you think that there's this horrible snowstorm coming and it winds up being rain, it's the same thing. You're going to have the news on in the background, and you're going to hear that Prilosec leads to, Alzheimer's. But there's just so much more that goes into it. You can't look at one research study. Unfortunately, that's what the news is doing. Unfortunately, that's what social media is doing, because they want to create hype. Of course, they're going to create this, excitement over something that isn't even real. So I want to talk about the right amount of calories. Not that I necessarily do that with people. I don't always like to go right into calories, because I feel like you hyper-focus too much on, calories and on the scale. But for what it's worth, I thought I would show you that there's a couple different ones that you can do. Most people, including myself and MyFitnessPal, we're using the Mifflin St. Jour. And what they're going to do is they're going to take into consideration your height, your weight, your age, your gender, and then they're going to do activity level. So the other thing I want to note is I personally believe, and I'm slightly biased, but I feel like research is going to change here too, because some people genetically get to eat more than others. And the example I give is, I have a little sister, she's 19 years old, we have different dads. And she looks like her family. Her dad died at 55 of heart disease. He carried a lot of weight, he was probably over 300 pounds. And so the example I give is this. She eats like crap. I can't even judge her. She's 19 years old. She's a college student, she doesn't eat all day, goes to Starbucks, and then she goes to Chipotle, right? But I was the same way, and I was probably 100 pounds soaking wet. So here is me eating a high-calorie diet with a fast metabolism at her age, and here's her eating exactly the same, except for these are my calorie needs, and unfortunately, these are her calorie needs. And so a lot of times when I find that people come into me and they're like, I don't get it, I'm doing Weight Watchers, I'm following it to a T. Or I'm tracking my calories, I'm doing it to a T. I'm like, it's accurate, but it doesn't take into consideration your body type. I mean, the people that put on weight now, honestly, would have survived. The people with really fast metabolism thousands of years ago would have starved to death. So it was a survival mechanism. Unfortunately, we just have too much food available. And the point I'm trying to make is that it does not, just because you have a slower metabolism genetically and your body likes to hold on to it, it doesn't mean that you can't lose. It just means you have to find a way to widen that calorie deficit. So maybe you have to be more active. Maybe you have to take fewer calories in. So that's the point I wanted to make with that. So we're going to talk about carbs. Everyone is afraid of carbs. 50 to 60% of your intake from calories should be carbohydrates. And I know that people are really surprised when I say that. But it's not just pasta. I'm not telling you that 50 to 60% of your plate from outside should be pasta and bread and potatoes. You're going to get it from beans, you're going to get it from fruit, vegetables, just a little bit, your whole grains. So each gram is going to give you 4 calories. Now, you want that preferably whole grain. And why is that? Because it slows down the breakup in your stomach. And the way I explain it is, your stomach is like a washing machine, right? You want it to sit there and have to break down your food. So when you eat white bread, white pasta, cakes, stuff like that, calorically it might be the same. 1 cup of white pasta is 200 calories. 1 cup of whole grain pasta is 200 calories. So calorically speaking, it's the same. But when you eat the white stuff, your stomach breaks it down too quick because there's no fiber in there. So it goes into your digestive tract, spikes your blood sugar, you freaking love it, right? You're like, oh my God, this is so good. But what happens is it drops and then your body thinks you're hungry. And when you're younger, you can get away with it. But this over time leads to diabetes. And so you want to keep yourself full long. You don't want to eat a meal and think you're hungry an hour later. So you do want to go for more whole grain. A common question I get is wheat bad or is whole wheat bad? Whole wheat is not bad for you unless you have a gluten intolerance or if you have celiac. And also, for what it's worth, I tend to use whole wheat and whole grain interchangeably, but it's actually wrong. So whole grain is like an umbrella term for different types of wheat. So whole wheat, barley, rye, quinoa, like all those things are going to fall into that category. But we'll talk more about that in a second. So then next we have our protein. Everyone loves protein. That is not beer, that is eggs. I was like, oh my God, it looks like beer. So protein is very important, but we don't need as much as we think we do. 20 to 30% of it is going to be your calorie needs. And that is because your body knows exactly what it needs. And normally the way that I figure this out is I just take your weight, I put it into kilograms, and then I multiply it by your activity level. So we think protein, we're like, yeah, we're making gains. But yes, it's important. You need that protein after your workout. You want your body to replenish. But it's also your immune system, your hair, your skin, your nails. I used to work with the bariatric, like weight loss population. And if they didn't get the nutrition they needed, their hair started falling out. They were exhausted. So your body starts suffering if you're not getting what it is that you need. So that's why, like, whether you're doing keto and you're not getting enough carbs, that's a problem. But if you're a vegetarian and you don't have a good understanding of the protein you need and you're not getting the protein, that's a problem. So there's a lot of research that shows why we need these specific nutrients.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Just keep going back to your activity level.
Yeah.
And that's how I found it, like on my fitness style, that's the most confusing part because what are you? I mean, what would you consider like active versus non-active?
Sure. So, and that can be confusing. And even when I'm doing the calculation myself, I'm taking a lot of things into consideration. So say you do my fitness, they're not going to do the calculation like I would. If you're not working out, then your everyday life, you're inactive, okay. So the recommendation, the American Heart Association says, the average American, if they're going to just maintain, should get 30 minutes of moderate activity per day. That's overwhelming. You don't have to do it every single day. I normally tell people, like, moderate exercise, like, is 3 hours. And I don't want to overwhelm anyone that doesn't work out. I don't believe in putting guidelines on other people. I normally base my recommendations based upon what they're doing. Yeah.
3 hours
3 hours of exercise.
a week.
A week, I'm sorry. Yeah, so instead of being like, well, you must get 30 minutes a day, then you can just do 3 hours a week one way or another. And that would be considered moderate. But the goal normally is to move. I mean, we're animals, We didn't need gyms. We hunted and we gathered. And now we've got gyms and Whole Foods to kind of like make up for this change that we're going through. So, but that's a question that you can ask me at the end too. Like if you want to look through your MyFitnessPal and like adjust that if you want, because I can't remember what the settings are. What do they put it at? Like
I can't remember either because I totally forgot the whole consistent.
Oh.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
because
Here's what I normally-
may
yeah.
not be what the provider thought.
But here's the other thing. Don't overthink it too much. Just put it in. And the other thing I say, if you're going to do MyFitnessPal, don't eat your workout. So say you apply your workout in there, and it tells you you're allowed to have 400 more calories that day. Don't, because you're defeating the point of having that calorie deficit. And maybe if you're on point and you're type A and you're like, yeah, but I'm getting the same calories every single day, that's fine. But let's face it, you're not. Like, how many people drank and ate whatever they wanted for St. Patty's Day? So there are times where you're going to overeat. So I normally say, don't eat your workout, because you're going to make up for it somewhere else. You know, if you're going to work out, get the benefits of working out.
Right.
Yeah. But there's so much more that goes into it, because you might be a person who runs for an hour and you're burning a lot of calories in that moment. But if you're someone that's like lifting heavy, you're not burning the same amount of calories, but for the next 2 days, your body's very metabolic. It's trying to replenish what it just burned, and the muscle that it just broken down has to repair it, has to repair the bone. So it gets complicated. It's not complicated, I don't want to say that, but like there's more to it. Does that make sense? So then you have fat, and 30% of your intake is going to come from fat. And I know that that probably sounds alarming or surprising, especially since I just said that only 20 to 30% of your diet is going to come from protein. But the reason the fat intake is so high is because for each gram, you're getting 9 calories. So it's not that you're consuming, like quantity-wise, it's not that you're consuming the same amount of protein. It's just that 1 tablespoon of oil is 100 calories. That's why, like, if I'm going through someone's day and I'm like, all right, well, tell me what you're putting in your protein drink or your smoothie, and they're like, well, I'm throwing in like a 1/4 cup of nuts, or I'm throwing in a 1/4 of an avocado. I normally tell them, don't waste your fat in your protein drink. You're gonna get your fat anyway, whether it's olive oil in your dressing. Like, you guys look at your plate and you think, okay, I had pasta and I had chicken, but like fat actually plays a huge role, So I think carbs get a big issue, and it's normally because of fat too. Like, let's take into consideration if you're eating cookies and we're like, oh my God, I had too many carbs. Well, it's made with butter, so a lot of the calories that we consume is from fat. You don't want to be afraid of fat, but you do want to kind of limit your animal fat, which is your saturated fat. And the reason is because we are animals and we have our own fat that we're trying to get rid of, so it's counterproductive to eat another animal's fat. This is what leads to heart disease. So you want healthy fats. You want your poly and mono unsaturated fats, and that's going to be from your avocado and your nuts and your healthy oils. So that's how you want to go about trying to get those fats in there. That's why those serving sizes aren't very big. Like a 1/4 cup of nuts is not a lot, right? And it's 160 calories. And don't be scared of it, but don't eat them when you're hungry, because a little bit does not go a long way. Okay? And then alcohol. So I thought I should include this one because I don't know that people know this. 1 gram of alcohol is actually 7 calories. So a lot of times, again, you go out to the bar and you get a beer and you're like, oh my God, it's the carbs, they're doing me in. It's also alcohol, so you can drink it, but my advice to people normally is, if you're seeing me and you're trying to lose, be mindful of what you're drinking. So just because you go to Las Margaritas, it does not mean you need like a 400 calorie drink. There's a lot of sugar and so there's where your carbs do get you in trouble, right? So they have skinny versions, or you can get, for people that like fruitier things, I normally say maybe get like a flavored vodka with seltzer, get a light beer. I'm an IPA drinker. They are like 250 calories. You have to ration in your brain whether it's worth it, Yeah.
I have a question about how you mentioned light. I don't know where I heard, probably Google, that when I don't ever do anything light. If I'm going to eat butter, I want whole, real butter, not the substitute of
Sure.
whatever they're lighting it into. So
Yeah. Where does light fit in? I think it depends. It depends on the situation. And here's another thing that you'll probably learn from me if you haven't picked up on this anyway. I am very gray area. I think I graduated school like everyone else, and my life was perfect, and I was like all or nothing. I was like, everything I'm eating is organic. Everything I'm eating is wholesome. And as I've gone through life, I'm like, you can't live like that. My approach is to be 85% spot on, like to really focus on putting good food in my body. Am I getting my nutrients, my fruits, my vegetables, and all of that? So my approach to it is I have to go off of, as a professional, I have to go off the research that is out there. I can't be biased. There might be things that I do on my own that whether it's been proven or not through research, I'm like, to me, that's not worth it. Like there's like an additive ingredient on microwave popcorn that I personally look out for. Even though the FDA has not said it's unsafe, it scares me. And I'm eating it often and I'm feeding it to my kids, so I figure if there's other alternatives, then why not? But so when you're talking light, it really depends on what it is. So let's talk about, we would have talked about it anyway, but we can do it now. So let's talk about dairy, right? I will get people who say to me, oh, well, no, I saw a nutritionist at my gym. He told me I need to do whole milk. But if you look at the American Dairy Council, the American Heart Association, the USDA, you want low saturated fat foods. So those whole milks, those butters, they're very high in saturated fat, and it does lead to heart disease, and there's enough research that does show that. The other thing is, if you do get skim milk or 1% milk, or if you're getting low-fat cheese, there's no additive in there. They're simply taking out the saturated fat. So it's not like a salad dressing. A lot of times if you get like a non-fat salad dressing, it kind of sucks. So they're throwing in more sugar. So you got to kind of ration that out.
Isn't it more processed though, the skim milk? That was my thing, like I buy real whole.
It's pasteurized, homogenized, it's all exactly the same. Yeah. And the other thing, and again, it's all personal preference. Whenever someone comes in, and Brian will tell you, whenever someone comes into me, I give them the research that's out there. That is my job. And if someone says to me, no, this is what I believe in, I feel like I've been doing my own research on it, I like giving my family whole milk, then I go, that's fine, we work around it. You know what I mean? So, but generally speaking, you do want low or non-fat dairy products. The dressings, you can make your own, if you want to find a lower fat alternative that isn't processed, you can do that. But, the way I look at it is our whole food system's shot, really. So my approach, when I get someone in my office, I don't overwhelm them with like only 5 ingredients. Make sure that you don't have the dirty dozen, because they're gonna miss the point. I'm like, okay, how do we take what you've been doing and make that a little healthier? And then you feel comfortable and you feel confident, and we build on that. And then you get to a point where you feel good with that, and then we move on. You know what I mean? So it's all personal preference. For what it's worth, margarines are not what margarines used to be. You'll notice they're actually not called margarine anymore, they're called buttery spread. So what happened was, when they started doing the research and they found out that saturated fat was bad for you, they took healthy fats and they put bonds in it, which actually made them even more unhealthy for you. And they created trans fats, and it wound up being even worse for you for heart disease than saturated fat. And then they started putting it in everything. Not that Twinkies are good for you anyway, but they started using these because they were more shelf stable. You could have food in the supermarket for months and they wouldn't go bad. So they realized this. It took them 20 years. So they noticed this. So now your margarines or buttery spreads are actually different now, and they're made of healthy oils, and there's no trans fats. But again, it's all personal preference. It's all what people believe in. And if someone tells me, no, I like butter, I'm sticking with it, I'm like, all right, well, but here's the serving size and work on it. If you like putting butter on your baked potato and you're loading that up and you're getting too much, try balsamic vinegar. Try something different. So, but did that clear up your question? Okay. Okay. So now that we talked about the 3 basic macronutrients, which were fat, carbs, and protein, now we'll see how it applies to the food groups, right? So not every food group is going to have just one nutrient, right? So you've got your protein, but then you'll notice that protein is also going to have fat in it. So if you're getting chicken wings, there's going to have skin, it's going to be dark meat, so it's going to have more saturated fat. So that's why when I go over the food groups with people, I normally say just go lean. Instead of me overwhelming you and saying like, you need to make sure every meal that you have is 4 grams of saturated fat or less, I'm like, just make sure you're getting like 93% lean ground meat, or make sure you're getting chicken breasts instead of chicken thighs. If you do have chicken thighs because you went to a barbecue, take the skin off if you can, stuff like that. This is where you're going to get your eggs and your beans. Beans can also be a grain. I think beans are equally a carbohydrate and are equally a protein. I tend to put beans in the protein section because I feel like if I told you guys you could only have one carb with each meal, none of you would ever eat beans again. Like you'd go for like rice or pasta or something like that. So I just feel like I took that into my own hands, and I tell people, you know, if you're making a salad and you're out of chicken, maybe put some black beans on there with a little shredded, you know, cheese and salsa and low-fat sour cream or something like that. And then so for what it's worth, all depending on the person, men get more. 4 to 5 ounces is a serving size per meal, but it doesn't mean you always need to have that much. But you don't want to go beyond that. So for the person who is doing keto or doing Atkins, a lot of times I find that those people tend to overindulge on their protein. And honest to God, the way you lose weight is calories in, calories out. And as a dietitian, there's a sub-level, and I want you healthier. I want to make sure you're reaching all these food groups and getting exactly what you need. But if you wanted to be rebellious and tell me you're putting yourself on a 1,500 calorie ice cream diet, you would still lose weight. You'd feel like crap, and you'd probably never, actually it might be a good way to never eat ice cream again, but you get my point. So then you have your starches and your grains, and those are going to be primarily whole grain like I talked about. So whole wheat pasta, brown rice, wild rice, you can do quinoa. Baked potatoes surprisingly are really good for you. I know that people are afraid of baked potatoes and they tend to go towards sweet potatoes, which are good for you as well, but sweet potatoes are actually higher in sugar than white potatoes because they're sweet. So eat the skin if you can because it's going to slow down digestion for you. And so that food group is going to be about 1 cup. But again, all depending on if you're a 5'1" woman or if you're a 6' man, I normally tend to finagle those a little bit because I don't want to kill the guys that see me. All your vegetables are free. I don't care what ones are higher in sugar. I do not care the carrots have sugar. They are not what did this to us. Not only do I like vegetables because they're good for us, but as a huge eater, I can out-eat. I'm going to challenge you. I can probably out-eat most of you. I like vegetables because they just give me the illusion of food. If I'm making my kids tacos, I want 10 tacos. I'm not allowed to have 10 tacos. So I'm eating 1 taco and I'm making the world's largest salad and I'm putting all those ingredients on top and it's taking me a while to eat. I'd much rather have a salad than a grilled chicken sandwich. Like honestly, because I want to sit there and I want to eat for a while. I think a sandwich is way too easy to eat, unless you're in a rush. You have to be careful what you're putting on your vegetables. So if you're someone that's roasting, I normally say put like a tablespoon of oil in your palm, kind of coat them, because that's something else that gets people in trouble. You know, you enter this lifestyle of loading up on your veggies, but you're heavy-handed with the oil. So you have to be mindful of that. You want to eat your fruit. Fruit is a source of carbohydrates. I normally tell people fruit is good for like snacking in between meals, especially if you guys are on the run. It's great for pre-workout because it's going to give your body the carbs that you need before a workout. For what it's worth, not that I would hold you to this, but 1 banana is 2 servings. You can eat a whole banana, I don't care, but I want you to understand what a portion size looks like. And then you have your dairy. And your dairy, you're supposed to get 3 servings of dairy per day. Side note, I think this is kind of funny, and it makes me question like where the funding is coming from. Of all the food groups, the USDA has not made up their mind about like how much every person needs exactly because everyone's different. I find it funny that dairy is 3. It's like no matter who you are, 3. And I think it's because the American Dairy Council has a lot of money and has a lot of input. But regardless, it's still a source of hydration and potassium and protein. So here is an example of how you take this plate and you can make it different things. So it doesn't always have to be, I think more so than anything, I like the snack ones because I think we get the meal, right? You can look at that plate and go, okay, I get it. Like this is what my meal should look like. And then you get into other situations and you're like, wait, what am I gonna have? So I normally tell people, the secret really is do not go too long without eating. No, think of these food groups every time you go somewhere. Even when I go out to eat, my thing to myself is, what is my lean protein source? And I take a look at the menu. I'm like, okay, do they have baked or broiled salmon? Do they have shrimp skewers? Do they have grilled chicken? Does it come with a carb? How much is that carb? In a perfect world, I'm getting whole wheat pasta. If they don't have whole wheat pasta, I'm getting white. It doesn't matter. But I don't want to skip that pasta or have no carbohydrates, because come dinner time, I'm going to be ravenous and I'm going to eat everything in my cabinet before I'm even done making dinner. So it's understanding the hormones that make you eat certain things. It's not depriving yourself. It's knowing how to go in Wawa. I was just saying this, and you know, grab a hard-boiled eggs and a cheese stick and maybe a bag of popcorn. And knowing that, like, you're going to be on the road because you're meeting with this person, and then you're going to settlement, and you got papers to sign, then you got to drop off a check. It's making sure that you. Carrie Ann's proud of me that I know this, but my house went to settlement yesterday. That's the only reason I know that. She had to drop off the check at night. I felt so bad for her, so I was like, oh. So I can relate. So it's knowing what's going on in your day and planning for it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you get really hungry and you realize that you're past that point, you know, when you're like, you
Yeah.
feel the sugar, there's no sugar, what is it that you eat?
Oh, he's right.
What
I
do you
am?
eat? That will help you settle that,
So initially, when you're feeling that, that is a drop in your blood sugar.
right?
Generally speaking, oddly enough, you would want a fast carbohydrate. So something that's whole grain is probably going to take too long to break down. Do not let that be an excuse, though, to eat, like, easy sugar, because that's something that I see diabetics do. Like, why did you have that candy bar? Oh, I had to. I felt my blood sugar dropping. So that is a loophole that people fall into. But you do. You want a banana, an apple, anything that's a carbohydrate, couple crackers, slice of toast, slice of bread. It doesn't need to be a whole lot. I mean, you only need 15 grams of carbs to bring your blood sugar back up, especially if you're not a diabetic and it's not an issue. But the key is to learn from that and go, why did I do that? Oh, I went too long without it. And learn from it. And if the next week, if you have the same type of schedule, put a couple granola bars or protein bars in your bag, you know? Not that I necessarily believe in granola and protein bars, but it's that all or nothing thing. When someone's like, yeah, I don't do protein bars, I only do chicken. Well, you can't keep chicken in your purse, you know? So if you're not eating, then you're starving and your kids are like, Mommy, I'm hungry, can we go to Chick-fil-A? You're like, yes, let's just, you know what I mean? So, and you start out thinking you're getting the grilled chicken sandwich, next thing you know, you're eating their fries and wondering how you got here. So it's learning from that. But if you are feeling a low blood sugar, a carb's gonna help with that. And I think on the next slide, I do talk about that. Your spacing of meals. So people say, you know, you need 6 mini meals per day. That statement is so overwhelming. I don't want to call it mini meals because then you have this idea that you need to like meal prep all week long. If you can keep a quarter cup of, like, think of your food groups. If you can keep a quarter cup of nuts in your car and a box of granola bars and just make sure you don't go more than 3 to 4 hours without eating, you're going to feel better. It's going to keep you on point, especially if you're talking to people. My husband used to think that I didn't work hard because he's in the union and he works with his hands and he's picking things up. Because I would sit at the dinner table and my kids would want to talk to me and I was like, guys, one at a time because I can't hear you. You guys are in the same boat. You're talking, you have to stay engaged, you have to smile and pretend that everything that everyone is saying to you is funny. And so you want to make sure you're on point. Are you getting what you need? Are you hydrating? Because if you're dehydrated, you can eat all these nutrients all you want, but now your body can't deliver them properly. Your body can't clean out the waste from the metabolism in the first place. So making sure that you're getting something every 3 to 4 hours. And then I wanted to talk about some myths, right? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. The reason they say breakfast is the most important meal of the day is because that is the one that people primarily skip. Does not mean it needs to be large. If you have a banana in the morning, so be it. I'm not hungry. I eat a slice of toast. Sometimes I get like a bite of all of my kids' cereal. I'm like, that's got to be like 100 calories. I'm just not a hungry person, but I know if I go too long without eating, mid-morning, I'm not right. And I think when you're younger and when you're a teenager and just out of college, you get away with that. And then you get older and you wonder why at night you're sitting down on the couch like tearing up a bag of chips or a bag of pretzels. If you didn't eat lunch, that would be the same. Lunch is the most important meal of the day. They're all important, and they all serve a purpose, and I think like we need to get a lot of these cliche statements out of our head. Too many carbs, I already said that a million times. But that is because, like, if you eat a slice of cake, yeah, there's too many carbs in there, but be honest with yourself. Is it made with heavy cream? Is it made with whipped cream? Is it made with butter? So it's being honest with yourself about that. One I don't have on there is eating after a certain time. I feel like that's one I probably need to take away from you guys. I don't care if you eat past 8. I don't care if you are back to back in your day, and then you pick up your kids. And now it's baseball season, and then you go and take your kids to baseball, and then you guys don't sit down to that dinner at 8 o'clock at night. What is the difference between you eating and sitting down right here and not really burning any calories, and eating and laying down and going to sleep? The only time I tell people don't eat after a certain time is that sometimes people have a loss of control at night. And so I'm like, all right, well, if you had all the calories you need, then you need to walk away from the kitchen. But swap things out. If you normally have a snack after dinner, maybe you have a yogurt and an apple after dinner, but it's a busy night. Then maybe have your apple and your yogurt at 6 o'clock when you're still running your kids around and it's real easy to eat before you leave the house. And then when you come home at night, you eat your dinner. So there's no, eating past a certain time is not going to make you gain weight. It really is. It's just calories in, calories out. Not losing weight because you're not eating enough. This is a common one I see a lot. I gave this presentation a couple weeks ago at the club, and after everything that was said, she still was like, well, I eat 1,300 calories and I can't lose weight. I normally have a couple answers. It's, have you checked your body fat? Are you putting on muscle? Can you see a difference in your clothes? And if the person's like, no, I don't really work out, I'm still not losing, then my question is, are you not that I like people to track, but if you're going to track, you got to track every day. You can't just track the times that you're good, like from the time you wake up until 5. Are you tracking on the weekends? If you partied this weekend for St. Patty's Day, did you take those calories into consideration? Just because you undereat during the week does not mean you can overeat on the weekend and it doesn't exist. So most often than not, when someone says, I can't seem to lose weight and I'm eating under, I think it's because I'm not eating enough, there's normally still somewhere along the way, there's too many calories that are happening. And then the last myth that I'll touch on is like detox drinks, doing stuff like that. Your liver knows how to detox itself. I know that there are programs out there that you can have like 2 shakes and a meal. It's not a detox, it is a deficit in calories, which is what gets you weight loss in the first place. So I just wanted to kind of put that one aside too. So do you guys have any questions?
How do you feel about supplements, vitamin supplements?
It depends on what you're deficient in. It depends on your diet.
I mean, do you think that they work?
Which ones? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know.
Well, for instance, protein powder is a supplement. I believe for a busy lifestyle, if someone gets to the gym and doesn't really have time to sit down and cook themselves eggs, you can do a protein powder as a supplement. I think it depends. I see a lot of supplements that are being used, like I'm sure you've seen amino acids maybe. You don't need it. Protein is amino acids, and so you're gonna take in that protein drink that's already been blended down. It's not like it's sitting in your stomach for a while, and then you're gonna use it. So I normally find that one to be wasted. When people come in and tell me that they're taking it, there's no harm. It's not like you can take it if you want. If someone is a vegetarian or mostly like strict vegan, not really eating eggs and meat and stuff like that, I normally recommend that they take a B12 supplement just because they're not going to get that from their meat sources. But it depends. I don't recommend supplements. I don't recommend anything to anyone until I know what their deal is. Until I know, all right, are you skipping a meal somewhere? Or are you skipping a certain food group because of a certain specific belief that you have? Or some people are like, I don't like vegetables and I'm not growing out of that. I'm like, all right, take a multivitamin, just to kind of cover your bases. But I like to look at people's blood work to figure that out before I go making any recommendations.
What is your thoughts on, you say wheat and white, what about sprouted grains? Is it really, are they better or not? I just keep buying them for no reason.
They are another option of a whole grain. So if you
Not
like it,
necessarily better than
no, Mm-mm. No. The way I look at it is, the food and diet industry is booming right now. Booming. And they're always waiting for the next, but I love just seeing like what everyone's talking about next. Like keto is slowly making its way out. Everyone's talking about intermittent fasting now. That one will be gone. Everyone's going to talk about another one. Acai berries are good for you. Pomegranate was like 5 years ago. I'm really happy coconut oil is gone. Like no one's really talking about that one because it is super high in saturated fat. And everyone was doing it. And when you do the research, if you don't know any better and you don't know how to do research on your own, the only websites that show you that it is beneficial for you are people that are either selling the product or people that are selling a book about the product. So the sprouted grains are fine. They're good for you. They're whole grain. But don't think that your whole wheat bread isn't either.
What cooking oil do you use?
I use avocado oil. It surprisingly has a very light taste. I came about it by accident. I was fine with my olive oils, but it has a really high smoke point. I'm in a rush constantly. I work 40 plus hours. I sub classes. I teach spin. I do body shaping. I probably work out too much. I have 3 kids. They all have sports. I'm in a rush. I don't get to bake my food. I feel like by the time my oven's even hot, I have to be somewhere else. I pan-sear most of my food. I don't bread and pan-sear my food because if I'm breading it and pan-searing it, now it's sopping up that oil. But I'm just putting a little bit in the pan so that it's not sticking. And I find that avocado oil has a smoke point of 500, which it doesn't burn the same way olive oil does. So if I'm putting my chicken or my salmon or my vegetables in there, it just tastes better. It tastes, you know what I mean? Why, what do you use?
I use olive oil.
Yeah, you can do that, but I think it's like 350 is the smoke point. So you'll see it starts like kind of like, you keep it on too long, you forgot to put your chicken on, so it's like burning. Yeah, yeah. The other thing I want to mention, I guess I should have started with this, but it doesn't really matter, is that I do have the sign-up sheet out there. I'm going to contact you guys. I'm going to try to get an idea, because this was kind of like, we just played around with this. We didn't really know where to go. I know that you guys are taking like a healthier approach here. So I don't know if I'm going to come in maybe once a month or twice a month, if we're going to do demos like this, or if we're going to do individual counseling. I do personally find that for a person who wants real results, I think one-on-one is really important, because there's always one person who tends to be louder. Not that it's an issue, I'm loud, but there's always someone who's quieter, and then their voice isn't heard. So I do find that individual counseling is really good for that. For what it's worth, most insurances cover nutrition counseling. Personal Choice and Keystone and Highmark Federal, they give you 6 sessions per year. Aetna gives you 10 to 26 visits per year. But we're also thinking about having like workshops. So I'm gonna, and if you guys wanna give me your input right now and let me know what you think about that, that's fine. But I'm also gonna reach out and try to get an idea of what everyone would want in the first place.
I just had a quick question. So you kind of talked a little bit about coconut oil.
Mhm.
So coconut oil is not good for you?
So here's the thing. It's
But I put it in my coffee.
yeah. Well, because that's like one of those keto things, right? And then you like pulverize it and it gets frothy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's
and
the
it's
thing.
so good.
Coconut oil
Tastes good.
is actually higher in saturated fat than butter.
Wow.
The thought process was that because it's a medium chain triglyceride, that it's absorbed in your intestines differently, but it doesn't matter. It's still in your bloodstream as coconut oil. If you have it in moderation, it's not a big deal, but there's still not enough research on it for me to ever be like, hey, what do you think? And I remember actually graduating school, and we were taught how to do our research. You know, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. You use like a .org or a .edu or a .gov. I can't just Google things. I mean, maybe I can, because normally the information's still in there. I just need like a refresher if I haven't thought about it. But for the most part, if I'm looking up new research, I'm looking at stuff like that. I remember graduating school and reaching out to one of my professors, and I was like, you know, I still don't feel comfortable, like, what do I say? And she was like, well, what research did you find? I told her, and she was like, then that's what you say.
Right, okay.
And I was like, I know, but I believe them. Like, I have patients coming to me telling me that they know that coconut oil is healthy. So, like, when you're new out of school, you don't believe yourself. You believe the person that's in front of you. So, I normally tell people that's not the oil that I cook with.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
And then I just had a question with like sugars. So my 14-year-old is becoming like obsessed with sugars and like looking at like, so I don't know, as a parent, I mean, not just sugars, talking about like sugary drinks,
Mhm.
like food.
Mhm.
So like he's worried about how much sugar is in pasta.
Oh, he is?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I would say,
Good for him.
yeah.
So he's also very heavy and he's, you know,
Oh,
in
that's
basketball and
yeah.
he wants to make sure that he's like, I need to be in peak shape.
Here's what I would do for him. I would not make it about weight, and I would not make it about calories, and I would not even make it
And
about
I'm
sugar,
trying-
because it screws with them,
Yes.
especially at a young age. I would play the card of, you're an athlete. Do you have the food groups that you need? And I would be like, who cares about the sugar and
Right.
the pasta? It's going to be there naturally. Is it a whole grain? You know what I mean?
And I do tell him all of that stuff, but
Yeah.
he wants to make sure that, like, because I do tell him, I'm like, don't worry about your calories. Don't
Yeah.
worry, just as long as you're eating the proper foods.
Yeah.
And he works out and just, you know, make sure that it's portioned right and all of that good stuff. But he's like, I just want to make sure I don't overdo it with sugars. So
Yeah.
as, like, how would I be able to help him in that aspect?
I think my approach with my kids would be to make it only about the food groups and the portions, because if you're eating healthfully, then the sugars that you're seeing in your food are natural. You know, if
Right,
he has a
okay.
packet, say you get those applesauce pouches, but there's no added sugar, then he's gonna look on the back and he's gonna be like, well, there's 12 grams of sugar here, Mom.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's an apple. It's going to have sugar. So
Okay.
instead of making that the primary focus, I would worry about, like, look at the label. Is there added sugar?
Got it.
Stuff like that. Some of them are going to have it. You're going to buy a spaghetti sauce and there's going to be added. So be it. You know, like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't fret over that.
Okay.
But talk to them about the food groups. Talk to them about how, like, healthy sugars are important, you know, for fueling you before a game.
Right.
Instead of always being like, all right, well, don't worry about it, bud. It's only 50 grams of sugar.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and he's looking at it as in the bad, but he doesn't eat processed foods and any of that stuff. But like looking at it in a positive way with like
Yeah, switch it from
foods and-
because
okay.
whenever you start, and this is adults too, when you're always like, oh, I can't have this, oh, I can't have that, you're like standing so close to the problem that you can't see that there's like a more mindful, healthier solution. So instead of always being like, I can't have this, I can't, it's like, well, what can I have?
Right. Okay.
You know, just for peace of mind. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Coconut oil thing. I think I know the answer, I just want to hear you say it. My husband doesn't necessarily eat it, he applies it as a lubricant
Yeah.
on his skin, so that's still going into his bloodstream.
Nah,
No.
nah, you're fine.
Okay, I wasn't sure. That feels
No.
like just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he's
I've
like-
had people like, they do, what's it called? Pulling?
Oh,
Where you swish it around your mouth?
Yeah.
I tried that once, it's really gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gross, but it really works.
Yeah, yeah. If you can get over, I was like, I just don't like mouthfuls of oil, but there is, yeah,
I know.
yeah,
I know. Amazing.
yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Thank
And if you want, you can come up and ask me a question if you didn't want to like bring anything up.
Please sign in so we can get
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
How are you?
Good. You too. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
How do you like it? Love it.
You all signed in? Nobody's not here?
Yeah.
You have to be,
Like 20 minutes.
You ate your food, you signed in?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I would love that.
Yeah,
That's
just
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you see.
Yeah.
Nutritionista.
Find me on Nutritionista. Thank you.
See you next week.
I'll see you Tuesday.
Take it easy.
Sorry, you can be
Awesome. I'm glad. I was like, sorry I was late.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
That's awesome.
No.
Have you done anything school?
Huh?
Have you done anything for school?
Where's the soccer team?
No.
Michelle, you have a flyer?
Do I? No.
Go, she's like, I swear.
Danielle DeMarco?
I didn't really, when I saw you today, I'm like, oh. I didn't even know that there was.
I get.
She's on
I
my
don't-
Facebook a lot.
I don't think I have a flyer there, but there is a trainer there that really likes me. We used to work together.